Great. Okay. So I can start, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thank you so much for the kind words, Daniel, for the introduction, and for having me. On the left side, I think you're sitting in front of the screen. On the left side, you can see my face. That's me, Philip. I'm a PhD student in Berlin at a small institute, which is called the Alexander von Humboldt Institute for Internet and Society. And I am doing research on business to business, B2B platforms, especially in the context of like how do incumbent firms use platforms to transform their business model and stay competitive in a more and more digitized world, also in the industrial context. But this is not what I'm talking about today. I'm talking about today briefly about a podcast project that Daniel and I started a couple of months ago. As you can see, Daniel, who is hosting this event and moderating it, is part of the project. So you could ask the question if this is an act of self-preferencing to give me the stage and talk about it. I open this question to the audience. And what I want to do today is to introduce the topic of podcast also as a way to disseminate knowledge. Then I give you like a brief background info or behind the scenes view, what we do with talking about platforms. And then I encourage to think about starting a podcast yourself. And if you'd like to know like really more about what we're talking about and really want to get some knowledge about the platforms, then of course I invite you to the podcast. We have already published 3 episodes. 3rd episode aired this week. There will be 5 more for the first season. But yeah, talking about this a bit later in the end as an outlook. Okay. First, a bit about the topic of podcasting or the business of podcasting. I think the whole podcasting industry is in itself a very, very interesting field for platform scholars, because it developed so quickly and so massively in the past years. I remember in the beginning when I was started listening to podcasts, it was very hard to find an RSS feed. There were no real players to implement the RSS feed. Hosting a podcast was very hard, so the entry barriers were very, very high. And they became lower and lower. And I think this is pretty much in line with what Camilla said also when it comes to like gatekeepers versus gate openers. I think there happened a lot of gate opening in the whole like podcasting world in recent years. And there are more and more like bigger and bigger platforms forming who are making the whole thing easier and easier, but also like more and more kind of orchestrated. But this is not the topic for today, but I think something that is very, very interesting for platform scholars to look into. To give you an idea like how the whole podcast industry grew, some numbers. More than half of the US population over the age of 12, and this is research that's done by Edison Research. They publish a yearly report about the podcast industry in particular. More than half have at least listened to a podcast right now. And what's even more interesting, that I think the number here, 66% say that they listen more to podcasts than they watch TV. What I also found very interesting is and say that they listen more to podcasts than reading newspapers. And I'd be very curious to know the numbers when it comes to listening to podcasts versus reading academic papers. I fear the number is even higher than 96%. The setting where do people listen to podcasts, and the 3 major answers there are, not surprisingly, while they're commuting or while they're doing housework or just during leisure time. And most of the people that are asked listen to podcasts on their smartphone, of course, when they're on the go or when they're doing the housework. That's the most convenient. Growing number, smart speakers, and also like the computer all laptops, but the phone and the mobile version is the most common. And why do you listen to podcasts, or why do these people who were asked listen to podcasts? They want to want to learn something new, want to be entertained, or staying up to date to the latest topics, and especially the
Okay, so we cannot talk with him. Okay, we're getting him back. Okay, so while we wait for Philip to be back, you lost me, yeah. We finished this and we're going to break. What we can do, you are not seeing yet? Okay, like this. We can move like this. So basically, what got our attention when we were trying to, well, we actually got in touch by chance, and we start talking about this podcasting word, and we end up discovering that the vast majority of people decide to listen to podcasts to learn something new. And talking about Symplatform, talking about all these kind of things, we were wondering if that could actually be a way to let people know something more about the world of platforms, even though in a not traditional way. He is in the waiting room. Yeah, he is in the waiting room. He is in now. Can you give him the rights?
Sorry.
Don't worry, Philip.
Okay. So where did you? Oh.
Well, I was just saying that we were trying to leverage that idea of having people learning new things through podcast, and that's where our journey together started. So you can take back from there.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. So the core topics, or the core reasons why people listening to podcasts, they're learning new things and staying up to date. This was exactly what motivated Daniel and myself to go on this journey. I had a paper discussion or reading group at my institute, where it was all about the latest platform papers, and thought about this knowledge and these interesting discussions that we had there in the group should also be accessible to a wider audience. And this also encouraged me to push on that idea, and really think about creating a podcast where we were talking about platforms, disseminating platform research to a wider audience, and really invite authors, talk with the authors about particular papers, and making this huge knowledge where so much effort and so much resource effort and mental effort goes in to make this really widely accessible, not just for an academic, but also for a practical and general interested audience. So that's how talking about platforms started, or why it started, what our mission is. And I said in the beginning that I'd like to give some behind the scenes information also. So we decided to do 40 to 50 minute episodes to really address the longer commutes and the housework kind of scenarios when people are listening to the podcasts. We decided to have a format where we invite the authors of the papers. So we pick interesting papers that we really like and we think offer a lot of value to an academic and a non-academic audience. And then we invite the authors to briefly introduce the paper in a short pitch that has in mind who the audience is that we'd like to serve with our format. And then we enter a critical discussion on the paper where Daniel and I prepare some questions, some discussion points, and then really try to engage in a lively conversation. Of course, some benefits of the authors, why they also enter and are super happy so far, hopefully in the future as well, to join us on the podcast. It's another channel for most of them, a new channel to disseminate information and findings from the research. It's a way to networking, of course, with us, but also with those who listen to the format, adds to the visibility. And of course, and I think this is something very important also when you consider after this talk or in general to start a podcast or another discussion-based format. Of course, Daniel and I very much enjoy, and also the people that we invite who do a lot of work about digital platforms very much enjoy just to talk about the topic they're so much interested in and they're so curious about. So this is also a bit like the selfish motivation that we meet interesting people and we talk about the stuff that we really, really like to talk about and to learn more about. What we did for the first series, also again to give you an idea how much effort this is and that you can understand how the whole podcasting thing works. We just scheduled Zoom calls, packed it in a 4 to 6. I think it was in the end like a bit more than 6 week kind of period where we recorded the full first season with containing 8 episodes. We asked the authors to prepare the 5-minute pitch and did the rest of the episodes in a natural conversation. And in the end, or in the beginning and in the end, we asked some similar questions to frame each episode and give the audience some kind of fixed points where they can think about in all the different episodes. So we always start with what do you think is a platform, and we always end with where are we heading with the topic of platforms. And then the third theme that I'd like to talk about is to motivate you. Also, if you think about disseminating knowledge about topics, be it platforms, be it even more niche than the broad, like talking about platforms, being it something else in your research, or also in your practical work, and to think about podcast as a medium to go with. Some like simple tips and tricks that we learned along the way that I'm happy to share with here. Of course, like driven by the huge global pandemic, more and more people getting more and more familiar with like digital meeting tools. Zoom is your friend also when it comes to like setting up a podcast, especially an interview-based, and there are interesting new solutions coming up like Zencaster that make it even easier to set up and record conversations online. There I'm very much encourage you to use a good headset with a good microphone, because like tone quality is the most important factor when it comes to an audio-based format like podcasts. Hosting services are very, very good and cheap and easy to use right now, and it's very easy to distribute the podcast episodes that you upload on the hosting service to all the different like receivers, so to say, like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and so on and so forth. And this is very much in line with what I said in the beginning, that the podcast industry is maturing a lot and still very dynamic and still like in itself an very interesting research topic. Audio cutting software is also something that is very accessible. Audacity or GarageBand are two that are even freely usable. to cut episodes and work with the audio, and it's also very accessible to like make yourself familiar with it. If you play with it a bit, you can quickly understand how it works. And what we also did is come up with an interesting jingle to increase the recognizability in the beginning and the end, and for the marketing material. That's also something you can think about. Then talking about the audio cutting, this one is getting even more accessible. I hope the video runs smoothly. If not, it's not so important. You can go to the website Descript and look at it. It's a startup from the US. And on the left, you see how Audacity looks like. That's how you imagine like audio editing to look like. You have the audio stream and kind of can cut stuff in, can listen where's someone saying what, and if this fits or not, and then you can cut it out or leave it in. And on the right, on the video, you saw that a company like Descript is transcribing the whole audio file, and there you can make edits in the text, and the text edits are represented in the audio. And if you then upload the audio where you cut out pieces in the transcript, you made the edits and the changes in the audio file as well. So it's getting more and more accessible and easier to set up your own formats. That's basically what I wanted to show here. And then, if you want really to start a podcast, start with the why. Why are you doing this? What's your driver, your motivation, your topic? Then, of course, think about the audience. Who are you producing this for? The use case, when should the audience listen to it, and the format. Would you like to have something interview-based like we have with talking about platforms, or should it be like a single format or like another conversational format? That's totally up to you, and depends also a bit on the topic that you're working on. Get a basic setup, hardware and software setup, and make yourself familiar with it. And then definitely, if you really want to start, that's also what we said, start with a minimum of 6 to 8 episodes. Don't say just I do one and then you lose the motivation. Say, okay, the minimum 6 to 8, and then you can go through it and really see and really get better and really learn. And the most important thing, of course, get going, just do it, just start. Daniel and I were talking about it for a while until we finally then started. And after we just started, we realized we really enjoy doing it, and everyone we had on it hopefully also did so and will in the future. Some more inspiration, 3 formats, also very research focused, that I'd briefly like to mention, and happy to share the slides after the presentation. And that's basically it. Of course, you're all invited to subscribe. It's the URL TAP for talking about platforms.podigy.io. There you can subscribe to all your favorite podcasting apps. And if you want to get in touch, please feel free to do that.